every form of work, there is some type of trade, and every trade has its form of art. It takes a special talent to transform well-made items we use today from mundane and obscure materials. These talented individuals are called master craftsmen. The journey to become a master craftsman takes hours of dedication, learning, and perfection of their skill. They are forever students, constantly improving their skills and continuing to push the limits of what we would call a masterpiece. This is Master Crafts.
I would also add to that list just some general. What am I trying to say? Just some. They already have like some basic skill sets or an aptitude. Maybe that's the better word. They already have an aptitude for what they're doing. It's just it comes naturally to them a little bit, you know. Or at least it seems that way when you work in the presence of a master craftsman.
True, very true. I mean, their individuality obviously pours out as they're doing it.
Yes. Yeah, you can definitely tell who enjoys the work and who's just doing the work. You know what I mean?
Right, absolutely. And then, like you said, you know, like there's a certain aptitude you got to have. Like everyone who's a master has to have these basic skills or understanding of what the heck they're doing. So it's not just like some guy just mod podging stuff together.
Sure. And I mean, a lot of master craftsmen, you know, if you like say blacksmithing, for instance, I mean, a lot of them worked as an apprentice for another master blacksmith, and that guy worked for another master. You know, everybody learned from somebody else. Nobody just was born knowing how to do certain things.
Right. Yeah.
But again, like you said, their own personality comes out in their artwork. And so, like, you know, recently I was loaned out to support a project within the company that I work for, but on another program. And we had to do a lot of sheet metal work. And now from my own past, I don't have a lot of sheet metal experience or airframe experience in general, but I was working with some individuals who I would learn pretty quick did have some experience. But you could also tell that they enjoyed that kind of work. Mm-hmm. And we had to reinforce the nose of this Gulfstream aircraft to support some weight that they were going to hang from the front. That the aircraft wasn't originally designed to hold. And you watch these guys take a sheet of aluminum and turn it and bend it and cut it and fold it, rivet together, bolt together, just these intricate brackets designs to not only reinforce that nose, but also incorporate existing avionics equipment that mounted in there. And they would make these elaborate trays out of just a flat piece of metal. And it would just, to watch it happen, you know, and I was just assisting the guy. I was, you know, just an extra set of hands. Here's, you know, sand this down or round these corners off, or, you know, simple stuff, or, you know, hold the bucking bar while we bang these rivets. But to watch those people take nothing and turn it into something was just, it was pretty mind blowing. And you could see that they were enjoying it along the way, because they would put it up there and, you know, from my eyes, I'm like, man, that looks really good, but it wasn't good enough for them.
Yeah.
They were like, they look at it and you put it up there and they'll, you know, they might Cleco it in place and they're looking at it and like, well, okay. And I'm like, wow, that looks really good. And like, yeah. And then they walk away and then you come back. Then they come back like 30 minutes later, like, no. And they pull it back off and they go and make some slight modifications or sand this corner down a little bit more, or open up this one hole so you can fit cannon plugs through there easier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just really, really awesome to see, because I feel like I don't have an eye for that kind of a thing. And it's impressive to watch those who do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like you were saying, they would look at it, they'll see all the little intricate flaws in it that the normal person just wouldn't. And that kind of attests to like the amount of work that it takes to be at the level that they are, especially because now you're fine tooth combing all these little missteps, say. And some of it is either their fault or it's the equipment's fault. Like it didn't hold the temperature that they needed to for the amount of time they did, or something like that. For the average person, it's just like, okay, you know, we're splitting hairs or we're dissecting atoms or something like that. But to someone who actually knows what they're doing and what they're trained to do, they see it, they hear it, and they could understand it at a far deeper level than we ever could.
Or say, for example, people look at only that individual component, right? We all know in aviation that you're like, why the hell would they design it that way? But that's because engineers, right? And they only look at the one individual component in their CAD drawing. They're not looking at the bigger picture and what's around it, what else might have to go or be run through that area. And so engineers like, yeah, build this bracket, and the fab techs get out there and like, okay, and they build up the bracket and they put it up there and they're like, well, okay, this is what you want, but here's some issues. And then they go and they're working with the engineer to redline the drawings and correct them. And like, look, we can put this here, but you need to punch another hole through the backside of this bracket because we're going to run this cable from this other component has to come through this area. But when we put this new bracket in here, we got to figure out how to reroute, and there's not enough cable length to do that. So, they're looking at bigger picture items rather than just, here's your component.
Yeah, right.
It's pretty impressive.
I can't begin to tell you like just how much some of that stuff is. Matter of fact, I had an issue at work where the current job I'm at, where there was this one engineer who like swears by his drawings. Like he's real savvy when it comes to making the drawings, but the actual like application of what he just put on paper just like makes little to no sense. So we were having this issue where this part wouldn't fit into this access panel. And we keep saying that, hey man, you need to come take a look at this. And he swears up and down, gives us all the math about how it's supposed to work. And we're like, that's cool and all, man. And I see your drawings. I see how elaborate you made it. But come out here and look at this real quick. It was such a hassle just to get him to leave his seat because that's his world. That's his universe or whatever the case may be. And then as soon as he gets to the plane, he just looks at it like, there's your part. And this is the spec that you gave us. We're basically trying to fit the star into the rectangle pattern, like it just doesn't work. And he's like standing there all baffled, like divides by 0. What the hell? And I'm like, this is what you gave us, man.
Well, and that's the thing, right? They come out and say, no, it's supposed to fit. And you're like, well, I'm telling you, it doesn't fit. Well, my drawing says, I don't care what your drawing says. It doesn't fit. Right. And I ran into this situation years ago that we were mounting this component to the center line of the belly of the aircraft. And it just wasn't they brought this component that they built in the lab down in another facility where there's no aircraft, and they brought it up to install for flight tests. And I'm like, hey, this doesn't match up. Like the mount holes here are offset from the aircraft. You got to redesign it. Like, no, it's correct. I said, no, it's not, and you have to take them out there, some arguing back and forth. They finally go out and they look at it and like, oh, wow, it is offset. I said, what'd your drawings show you? Well, it come to find out the drawings that he was basing everything off of, and they were a new engineer, but the drawings are wrong. They had the center line of the aircraft 2 inches off from what it was. So the drawings are wrong. The person had never seen the aircraft, never even laid eyes on the aircraft till it came up to the flight test facility, but it just wouldn't mount. He's like, that's interesting. So everything that I've put together is going to be wrong for this whole project. And they had to scrap the project because it was just hundreds of thousands of dollars wasted, because the drawings are wrong. Yeah.
And like when stuff like that happens, it's like comparing an astronaut to an astronomer, like, oh, he's trying to tell you all the widgets of the stars and whatnot. Like, dude, I'm looking at it. I'm here. I'm standing on it. I know what I'm talking about.
I don't care what your math says. I'm telling you, it doesn't fit. But then it's like they don't believe you for some reason.
Yeah. I'm not questioning your intelligence. I'm just telling you like something or another is amiss, and you need to apply that brain power to what's actually going on.
Yeah. Use your eyes, be a mastercraft engineer and use your eyes. Cause math is fine and all that, that's more than I can do. So, my hat goes off to them in that aspect, but also just some practical application goes a long way too. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's a lot of headaches and a lot of issues could be fixed that way. But, the aircraft would probably be 4 times the size it is if it was designed by maintainers rather than engineers.
Right. Right. We tank diving and it's just to go into this one little space. We talked about a little bit about like MVP you mentioned, like blacksmithing and stuff like that. Another trade that I've seen that has some type of mastery that almost nobody takes an awareness of is welding, right?
Oh, like, man, that is a skill and a half.
Yeah. And Not gonna lie, I've done some welding. I'm pretty decent at it, but I've seen some guys that when they weld, it just looks like they're sewing metal together. It's so wild watching them do it, and they can do all these like weird snake patterns into the weld itself and into the surfaces that are mating. I can't explain it. It just looks like they're like
It almost looks like a machine was what welded it because it's so perfect, but
Yeah.
they did it by hand. And, that's a skill that I also don't have. Just add that to the list of skills I don't have.
right, like check mark stuff I don't have. And in most cases where people who deal with metal, when they do weld, sometimes they overshoot it, so they have to grind it flat, right? More so than what they normally would, just to kind of true it up or smooth it out. But then you have this kind of people where, like it's like one beat done. No grinding, no smoothing, no truing, nothing. It's just perfect. Like, I hate you.
Oh, I know. Well, and to add to all this, I think part of a master craftsman is, forward thought or future thought. Okay, I'm working this job now, but what happens when I have to come back and inevitably maintain this in the future?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
If I can tear it all apart and put it all back together the way it was, but I know how much of a pain that was the first time. How can I adjust this to make it better? And that might require, changing some drawings and whatever else, but maybe your industry doesn't work off that. Let's say you're a plumber, right? So just from my experience yesterday, I know I was telling you guys offline, but had a leak coming from the bathroom in the wall, kind of leaking through the exterior wall of my home. So I called a friend over who was a plumber and electrician in his past life, and kind of takes a look at it and, has all the proper tools, but we have to cut a hole into the wall. But it's just watching him cut, and he didn't just do, hey, it's not mine, so I'm just going to cut in here and whatever, took his time, made nice fine lines, didn't cut it any bigger, didn't cut a 4-foot hole in the wall. He said, let me start small, reach in there with a light and inspect and see how big I really need to make this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So instead of saying, I'm just going to put this massive thing in here. And then he's like, and why I don't want to cut it that big? I said, well, you can cut it as big as you need to. You're like, I was just thankful for the help.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, no. He's like, because I don't want to do this. I only want to make it this big if I can, because then there's these inspection panels you can install on the side of your home. So instead of closing this back off, we'll put an inspection panel here and you can pop it open anytime to look at it. Or if you get a leak in this area again, it's just easier to get to the next time.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I was just going to cut a hole in the wall and figure it out from, I was basically hip fire it one step at a time. But the master craftsman is already 10 steps ahead of what they're doing. They're already thinking that far ahead, I guess is what I should say.
Yeah, you're right. And again, a lot of this goes back into that training and experience. Like you mentioned, MVP with the blacksmith takes years upon years.
Trial and error. You're going to go through a lot of failures, figuring it out along the way. But then you teach the next generation your mistakes. Hey, learn from my mistakes. Don't do this. And hopefully as time goes on, mistakes get less and less and minuscule or whatever else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes on to like that forever journey of it. Like you're always got to be learning your skill, because if you just stick to one method or one type of procedure, you're going to go obsolete really fast, especially the way things are evolving and the way things are progressing. And we get a lot of that stuff in basically any industry. Like, this is the only way and this is how we're going to do it. And that's that. This is how it's done. Right. But but that stuff died off like however many some days, weeks, years ago. Like some of this stuff that you're talking about fell off in the early 90s, and we're here in the 2000s or late 2000s or whatever, and you're still in that early mindset when things were still analog applications.
Yeah, in the digital age, but trying to use analog applications to digital doesn't work. But it also doesn't work reverse either.
Right. True. And fault me for this if I'm wrong, but I remember watching something about, or I remember hearing rumors about sushi chefs where their first couple years of apprenticing as a sushi chef is you're just the dishwasher. You're just washing dishes, sharpening knives, and you're just watching the whole time. You're not doing anything with fish other than just doing like the the basic bitch work, basically.
Well, and I think that's how most apprenticeships. So I've heard that as well, Six, about sushi chefs is that they start, and I think most apprentices, even in the blacksmithing trade, I think a lot of them start out sweeping the shop floor, right, cleaning up the metal shavings, cleaning slag up, stoking the fire, just kind of like you were with your dad growing up. We all were hold the flashlight type thing.
And it's never right.
And it's never right. Yeah. You're still never holding it right. You could have the sun shining into the engine bay of your car and it's still not enough light in the right area. But yeah, I think that's most of it. You start off and you're like, okay, just watch and listen. See what you can pick up. I'm not going to tell you anything. Just, I want you to see what you pick up and what you notice. And I think it's a way for them to feel out, hey, is this worth my investing my time into this individual to teach them?
Yes,
teach
absolutely.
them what it takes. Because why invest so much if the person's just there, just a warm body, so to speak.
Right. Or, or they just want the master title for the clout, really, I just want to be able to call myself like a blacksmith or a sheet metal specialist or master, whatever, because it sounds cool, because it gives me a little bit of a notch on my belt.
Or it's the resume builder. So they do whatever minimums required to get that certificate put on the resume, and then to apply for a job that they're really not, they're on paper qualified for, but skill set wise not qualified for. And there's that meme out there that says, when you get the job, when you lied on your resume and still got the job anyways.
Yeah. I saw one like that where it was a engine intake manifold, and it says he said he could weld, and it's just like a bunch of shit.
Just garbage welds and slag metal laying everywhere.
Yeah.
There's pinholes through the welds, and
yep.
there's even tape on there at one point.
Yeah. I mean, it might as well be tape at that point. So there's some trades out there, especially in the US, that actually have masterable, if that's even a word, masterable trades, and there's certain wickets you need to hit in order to get that. A good amount of them is like experience hours. Like you have to work so many hours as a this or as a that. And then there's actual instruction hours that you have to hit. Like you have to take certain courses for X amount of hours, and it has to be certified or accredited by this organization or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, you have to have so many hours in to just be able to teach the subject alone. But just having the hours alone isn't good. You have to get those hours just to be able to take the test to see if you qualify to teach, right? I think in plumbing and electrical, it's they call it a journeyman.
Yeah.
And to be a journeyman, you have to have so many hours and I think within certain states, there's, each state has their own codes or set of tests you have to actually test out to see if you qualify to be a journeyman, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you make that, then you qualify for, higher pay wages and such things like that. Mm-hmm. Or you can charge more the hour if you're running your own business. But as you should, right? If you can qualify, if you can prove you have the skill set and the knowledge base to do the work you say you can do. But yeah, it's not just one of those like, oh, I've done it 3 times and I consider myself a master. No, it's not the case. There's usually boards that accredit you, basically say, yep, you can be one of us.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I've seen some instances where, especially in the aviation set, I mean, shoot me from lightning, but a lot of their hours or their requirements, a lot of it is pencil whipped. You know what I mean? They just like, this is my buddy, this is my homie, or this is something we just really need to have on our team because it's mandatory or whatever the case may be. So they just pick someone who has any sort of intelligence and they just pencil whip it the whole way through.
I think we've all seen that. I think every industry has that to a certain degree, where there's you have, let's just say like a doctor, right? Mm-hmm. You have your valedictorian who graduated, with a PhD, but there's also a doctor out there who had a D average, still passed, but it was a D average, so they just hit the minimum wickets, what it takes to be able to get
Right.
the license to operate or whatever else.
Right. And you can see that in the work too. Like this one job I had, I was a telephone installer, and this one I had this one supposed master and electrician come by, and the way he was routing his cables, running his lines and all that, and it just looked like a computer throw up, like just plug it where it fits, and just kind of fit it wherever it could go. And it was like, hey, it looks like
when you go into a home and you're like, oh, I did all the electrical work myself, and it looks like a rat's nest of wires, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute. And then you're trying to find like wherever a fault is, and you can't find it because you got to dig through the spaghetti ball or the yarn ball of electrical wires. Like, where the
like
hell?
If you've ever been in the server room, if you work for a big company and you go into their server room, typically you'll see all the fiber cables, and they'll be, they'll try to run them as nice and clean as possible over to a main bundle, and everything's labeled properly. But then you see those pictures where it's like one's running, they're wrapped around another one, and one's going off this way and one's crossed over to the other one. And you're like, how do you even say you have a problem? How are you even troubleshooting this?
Yeah.
Like, what a nightmare,
Yeah. So matter of fact, we actually ran into a situation like that where we had to troubleshoot a line. And so we had a tracer on the side that we could actually see, and it's supposed to ping whenever you run a scanner or a probe through it. We're going down the line where we possibly think the fault is, and we just hear the widget like pinging off, like whistling its song and whatnot, and it's just going to like this ball of yarn of wires. I'm like, well, it's in here somewhere.
And you just start crying when you see it. You're like, no, please, no.
And it's one of those situations where the only way to find it is to just start cutting shit away. Like,
yeah, that's exactly what you have to do, because you have to start unraveling the ball of yarn, because that's the only way to do it properly. And you go, and I can't leave it this way, because the next person after me is going to think I left it this way, and I don't want my name tied to this work, right? And I think that's so true of a lot of us in aviation. He's like, God, I can't let this go. Like, I got to fix this. This isn't right. Because the next person is going to say, oh my God, they're going to see your name in the logbook and go, oh no, can't trust anything that person does, even if you had nothing to do with that. But this is how it goes. I think one of the biggest qualities of a master craftsman is pride in your work.
Yes.
You can be skilled at what you do, and you can make something out of nothing, but there's also that sense of pride in work. Like, no, I'm going to do it this way because it's the right way. And when people hear my name, they automatically associate it with quality work. Or I want my name to mean something to where when they say, oh, who did that? I was like, oh, well, it was, MVP. Oh, well, don't even worry about it. It's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that, like we've been saying over and over, like it goes into like the pride, it goes into the training, it goes into the experience. And I think this also ties in with pride. It goes into the integrity of the person. Like, how willing is this person to just let that go? It's like, okay, it's like this little fault, very minuscule, you'll never see it, and he's just willing to let it go, Yeah,
like, it's not right, but it's not
wrong enough.
It's not wrong enough for me to care to fix it. Where there's other people that, it could be 1 centimeter off, and like, nope, redo it. Gotta have it dead on. Like, well, there's tolerances for a reason. They're like, yeah, but I'm going to get it to the low end of those tolerances.
Yeah.
I want that tolerance to be as tight as possible. I don't care if there's a 1/2 inch tolerance. I'm going to have it as close to 0 as possible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's, like you said, the integrity, that's a big one of it.
Mm-hmm.
Integrities, some people have it and some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Shoreline, from your industry, I guarantee you I don't know if you guys have any certifications or whatever for the audio side, but if you want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, so there's tons of certifications that you can get. A lot of them have to do with like working with different networking tools and stuff like that, different consoles, different sound systems, stuff like that. But really for us, at least in the part of the industry that I'm in, being a live sound engineer and being an audio engineer, dealing with sound, not just dealing with systems necessarily. The real sign of a master craftsman, and you guys touched on I think all of these points, but is that person that really takes the extra time to make it 100% right. I've had the pleasure of working with Peter Frampton twice, and his crew is one of the most professional crews I have ever dealt with. And I mean, he's been touring for forever, so you would expect that, but everybody that was involved in that production was a master at what they did. His guitar tech was phenomenal. I mean, he was quick at everything. He had a great Guitar World setup, so he was able to navigate that really well, and he wouldn't let anybody back there because lots of very expensive, very sensitive equipment. Right. But he was very particular about how he wanted it, and we helped him set it up, and then we just walked away, and he did what he did. And then they had, let's see, for the first time I worked with them, we were in a smaller room with a not great PA, and this PA is from the mid 90s, and this was 2018, I think. So these boxes have been beat up and been outside and been, I mean, just the worst of the worst has happened to these boxes.
Yeah, used and abused,
beaten to shit. Right. One of the best sounding shows I have ever been to was Peter Frampton on that PA. He just worked with it, and he was like, so this is what we got. Okay, cool. We'll make it happen. And he was able to take that, that piece of shit PA, and it was one of the best sounding shows I've ever been to. Now, fast forward 2 years later, we're in a bigger room with a brand new top of the line PA, and he's got a systems tech with him. So he's got a guy whose job it is just to what we call tuning the system. So his job is to mathematically make the room sound even everywhere as much as possible, right? And it was cool because a lot of the times if I'd work with people like that, it's, well, the front of house guy is somewhere, the systems tech comes in and does his thing, and then the front of house engineer comes in. They don't really interact a whole lot. But in this case, Jim Yakubuski was the front of house engineer, and I'm so sorry that I'm spacing on their system engineer's name, but they worked together so cohesively. I mean, they were just side by side the whole time. And it wasn't like I'm having to ride his ass because I have to have this PA sound like this. He's genuinely interested in like, cool, so what are you doing? This is what I'm hearing here. I know that 400 hertz is a little hot here, but that's what I need out of this space because we're in a box and it's not a room that's meant to sound good. And like this is what I know I'm gonna need. And they were just cohesively working together. And that was an incredible show to be a part of. And everybody was a little on edge because they were on a stadium tour, or an arena tour rather. So they have all their own audio equipment, stuff like that. But because we are contracted with the casino we were working with, they had to use our stuff. So then it was like, okay. So we all just kind of had to work together, and we got it done, and they were super happy and super easy to work with. He wasn't afraid to take the extra step, and he would even show me what he was doing because he's like, yeah, this is what I'm doing here. This is what we're looking at. And even to when he was mixing the show, he just took that extra time to be like, what are your thoughts? Will you go up here and make sure it's sounding good up there, and then come back, let me know, let's trade notes. So like you guys said, it's really somebody that takes that extra time to be good at what they do and to produce the best quality product that they can. I think is really a great sign of a master craftsman above certifications, because you can have piece of papers all day long. I mean, my industry in particular is very experience driven. It's not at all education driven. I mean, you can, like I said, you can have a degree from the Art Institute of Seattle. You can you can have, whatever certification, but if you don't know how to use it and you don't, and you can't show that you know how to use it effectively, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I fully agree with you on that. And you hit the nail on the head on that one, where like, you can have someone who has all the paperwork in the world, all the pedigrees in the world, etc., but he just cannot put the connections together. That'd be the.
And part of that too is, can they operate under pressure?
Yes,
can they operate like when yeah, sure, you can tell me on a piece of paper what to do, but if I put you in the shit, and are you going to freeze up, or are you going to make solvers.
It work? That's a big quality of a master craftsman. Is problem solving.
Absolutely.
On this, I mean, like you said, in a high stress situation, one of the things I heard you say is that you had a piece of equipment from the mid 90s, and here it was the late 20 teens, and okay, this is what I got, and this is what I can do. And a master craftsman doesn't make excuses. They make lemonade out of lemons. They take, okay, this is what I got, and they make the best out of it that they can. They problem solve, they resolve, right, and make it happen.
Right.
They don't make excuses.
Right. Or like turn rocks into swords and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they can, like I said, take nothing and turn it into something,
right. Yeah.
Going back to the beginning of the episode.
Absolutely. Yep. So, for anyone in question, like, so how do I become a master craftsman? Right. We said it throughout the show, like there's some certifications you got to go through, and there's all these different steps for it. And it's trade and industry specific, but most of all, you gotta be passionate about your work or your skill, whichever the case may be. And you gotta have the integrity and the drive to do it. It's not just something you can just pick it up as a hobby and just expect to be good at it the second you touch it. I mean, some people say that like, oh, I don't expect to be good, but then you can really see them beating themselves up, or they just give up.
Yeah, the biggest critique is themselves.
Yeah.
They're harder on themselves than anybody else ever would be.
Right. And that's 100% fine. It's when you just like throw the gloves down and just walk away and just not really make the solid attempt to try to learn it. You just make that one or two defeats be the end all be all and just kind of call it quits.
One other sign for me of a master craftsman is being able to explain something to somebody like they're 5. Right. Being able to dumb it down, but also make them understand what's going on.
Right.
A master craftsman is a great teacher.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or can be, right? That's another quality of them is being able to relay the information they know to someone who doesn't.
Yeah. Right. All master craftsmen can be great teachers, but not all teachers can be master craftsmen.
Ooh, shots fired.
What's the old saying? Those who can't do, teach.
Ooh, shots fired again.
That's another saying I've heard over the years.
Yep. Got it there. Closing thoughts, MVP.
Well, just take your time. If you want to become a master craftsman, start working with someone who is. Ask for their inputs, get their advice. Just watch them, shadow them, imitate what they do. Model yourself after their work ethic and their skill set. Get their input, research your own industry, determine, if you want to go that route, what all qualifications are required for you to be able to test out and become a master craftsman yourself. So then you can relay on down the line to the next person.
Right. Pass on what you have learned. Caveat to this one. Some cases, some master craftsmen are not famous. They're just kind of like that well-known circle, but they don't really have that kind of that urge to be public with it. You just kind of know because like they have this certain signature in their work, whether it be a no kidding signature or this person always does this kind of tweak to their design or to their craft. So don't always look up someone who's famous. You just kind of have to feel it out and see like, okay, who this work looks really good, who did that one, and then kind of research your way from there. So
that's a really good point, because I would say majority of the master craftsmen that I've met over my career wasn't somebody who was known throughout the industry as being the best at something that you just happen to work with, and you're like, this person is top notch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's funny is when you work with those people, you don't know who they are, and then you start researching them and you realize, oh, this person's written books. This person has, worked with XYZ. This, like, it's crazy.
This person designed and built such and such component in their garage. You know what I mean? Like,
it's just, like, taking that same example that I was giving you guys, Jim Yakubuski, so I work with him, and then I'm like, man, I really liked working with that guy. Let's see what else, let's research him. So then you look, and he's, worked with all of the bands. I mean, pretty much everybody at this point. He's an incredible guy, but he also, like, when he's not doing that, when he's not touring, he's out teaching at churches to try to make church sound better, or, out educating other people on on live sound. So, having the desire to do that kind of thing, to me, is also a huge master craftsman. Not being too big for any job,
bingo.
But still taking the time to be prideful in your work.
Right. Yeah. And like, again, like we said, pass on what you learned. Don't just keep it to like, oh, this is just my small circle of famous people, or whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
Yeah. We like to thank our patrons for supporting us on the show and having Shoreline be ever so happy and grateful. He's grateful to be helping us on the podcast. Erica Lamont, Chris Hawkins, Stephanie Boatman, Jenny Dignan, Ryan Frushauer, Daniel Schubert, and Steven Shires. Thank you guys so much for all of your support on Patreon. And thank you all, the audience, for supporting us, feeding us your inputs, your ideas, and just feeding back of how we are on the show. Check out our website, cancelformaintenance.com. Learn more about us, some of the things that we've done. You could also use that website to send us your ideas, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, hit up that contact us section on the website. As of right now, our shop is currently under construction. We're retooling some things around to make your shopping experience all the more better for you guys. And also, if you have ideas for some merch, shoot us that way too. Check out some of our sponsors like Rockwell Time. They make a lot of outdoorsy apparel, such as snowboarding glasses, watches, and like flannel t-shirts, other kind of outdoorsy stuff. If you visit rockwelltime.com, use the code CX4MX and save 20% off your purchase. Again, visit us on Patreon, support us on Patreon. All patrons will get exclusive access, such as live meet and greets with us on Discord, and then merch that's exclusive only to them, and other special discounts.
Awesome, everybody. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Have a good way.